Alright guys, so let's start. We're going to do World History 2 review. So I put up a map of the empire. So now you're going to see lots of maps on the test. They have lots of images, lots of maps. And I would say probably 75% of the questions have some kind of image with it. I always tell my students that of all the countries in the world, the one that you got to be able to locate is India. So we find India. What color is where India would be? Green. And then China would be the next one that I would definitely want to know. And then for Europe, I want to know Germany. Like if we're thinking like minimal things that we have to know, like kind of that's our idea. We had a hard time with that in first period the other day. Anyway, all right. If somebody want to tell me, all right. So let's look at our America civilizations. So what do we got? Matthew, Aztec, Maya, Inca. So I always tell my kids Amy with an I. So maybe you learned that in 8th grade, but it's Aztec, Maya, and Inca. And really all we need to kind of remember other than locating them, keep in mind, you need to be able, like, if you're just seeing South America, can you realize that that's the Incas? Sometimes they put, like, a map in the last few, like, what mountain range runs here, or which civilization is at the Andes Mountains, or what ocean, I saw a question, like, what ocean borders the Inca Empire? And this, what ocean is that, by the way? Pacific Ocean. Okay, so we're looking at these also. Who conquered the Aztecs? Yes. Which Spanish Cortez? Yes, Cortez. So Cortez is C-O-T-R-E-Z. So like there's the Z, there's the C. That helps you kind of tie it in with Aztecs. Sometimes Cortez is spelled with an S. And then the Incas were conquered by Pizarro. I always say they have pizza with the Incas. All right, this is the least likely to have on there, but I like to say it just so we know. Does anybody remember who's one in Africa? Hey, come on in. Sorry. Songhai, yes. And then who's the yellow? Ottoman Empire, and then that leaves the Mughals. All right, so what do the Ottoman empires and the Mughal empires have in common? They're gunpowder empires. What religions are they? They're Muslim. They use Arabic and Islam to kind of unite them. So Mughals bring in Islam. What religion is already here in India? Hinduism, yes. What religion left from India and came to East Asia? Buddhism. And who sent that there? Ahsoka. Okay? So we're going to go over all the religions. That'll actually be the first thing, but it's kind of a good idea to have placement. So with religions in the Middle East in the 1500s, which religions would have been here when this course starts in 1500? All of my monotheistic religions, Christianity, Judaism, Islam. Would there have been any in the Americas in the 1500s? Why not? Exploration hadn't happened, right? Okay, what about who would have been in Europe in the 1500s? All of my Muslims, monotheistics again, Christians, Jews, and the Muslims have been here in the South. Okay? All right, any questions about map? How you feeling about geography? Hey, if you're going to see kind of world map, you'll see some zoomed in, you'll see some colored sections. The maps will always have the water as white, and then they do shading on the land. Okay, because we get so used to looking at maps where they're in the wood. All right, so we've been doing this course for what, 6 months? So let's try to cover it all as quickly as we can, as much detail as we can. So let's start with religion. That's one of the first things that we talk about. Alright, so I always say my religions in the same order so that I can kind of keep them straight. So I always say my monotheistic religions first. So what are my monotheistic religions? Okay, I do them in the order they were created. So that would be Judaism, and then Christianity, and then Islam. So these are going to all be monotheistic. And then what are my Asian religions? Buddhism and which one of those came first? Hinduism. Remember that Buddha was rejecting Hinduism. He's trying to come up with something new. So these are our Asian religions. So when we're thinking about them, kind of what are some clues? What are you most likely to see? Like for Judaism, what's the holy book? And what's the location of Jews today? What country do you associate with them? Israel. And there are some in the U.S., but mostly in Israel. Remember that Israel is formed after World War II as a result of the Holocaust and for Jews to have a homeland. All right, Christianity. What do we need to remember about Christianity? Bible. Basically, remember Jesus. That's going to get you in most places, right? Okay. Jesus, the fact that the Bible is a holy book. I think we can pretty much answer most questions about Christianity since we live in the Bible Belt. Even if you don't believe it, you've heard it pretty much your whole lives. For Islam, if we're always thinking, I always say the M's, because the M's would then cover what? That they're Muslims, that the Prophet is Muhammad, that they worship in a mosque, their holy city is Mecca, Medina, okay? And then, of course, their main ideas are the what? I heard it. What are the main ideas? What are they called? How many letters are in Islam? 5. What are the beliefs? 5 pillars. Does anybody know the 5 pillars? Anybody can tell me? The Shahada, which is faith. It's faith, alms, prayer, fasting, pilgrimage. Shahada is that there's only one God and Muhammad is his prophet. Prayer 5 times a day facing Mecca. Alms or charity 2.5%. The fasting during the month of Ramadan. And then the Hajj, going to Mecca once in your life if you're financially and physically able. Remember that they're all monotheistic. Remember they all can trace their roots back to Abraham. Okay. Hinduism, what's kind of the key thing I always think about with Hinduism? That one thing, like I know if I see that, bam, it's Hinduism. This type of system, how they're organized. Caste system. If I see caste system, I know it's Hinduism. If I saw a question that said, who believes in reincarnation? Does that narrow it down to 1? No. If it says, who started in India? Does that narrow it down to 1? No. Who believes in the caste system? Now I've narrowed it down. Also, just remember that Hinduism never leaves India. Kind of the key part, look at the word Hinduism. Okay? Almost like India's inside of it. Alright, Buddhism. What do we think about with that? The 2 number things. Eightfold Path and the 4 Noble Truths. There's 8 letters in Buddhism. Maybe that'll help you. Alright? So any other things you got questions about the religions? You feel okay on them? Most of the religions are fact-based questions. There's going to be at least one map-ish question about the religions. Alright, now let's move on to the Renaissance. Okay, where does the Renaissance begin? Okay, it begins in Italy. Who are the people that we need to know? Tell me some folks, Renaissance folks we need to know. What? You gotta speak loud, with confidence. Tell me a Renaissance artist. Michelangelo. I make no promises that I'm spelling anything correctly. Erasmus. Who's our other Renaissance artist we need to know? Leonardo da Vinci. Possibly we might see Shakespeare. I'd say those are your best bet. And you're only going to probably see one. So I'm probably going to see a work of art. So if I see a picture of 2 fingers touching each other, what am I looking at? Michelangelo, I'm looking at the Sistine Chapel, the creation of man, of Adam. What if I see the Mona Lisa or the Last Supper? Yep. What did Erasmus do? If you guys want to take a picture of this before you leave, that's fine. You don't want to write everything down? I'm fine with that. You totally can take a picture of it. You're not going to hurt my feelings. And writing down helps you remember too. That works out. It isn't whatever works for you. So Erasmus writes a praise of folly. He's kind of a pre-reformer because he's criticizing the church. What about Shakespeare? They're not going to make it easy on you. They're not going to give you Romeo and Juliet. They're going to give you the hard plays. What are the other ones? Macbeth, Hamlet, all the sonnets he wrote, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Much Ado About Nothing. So we're thinking about the Renaissance, though. The key thing, what's this all? It's revolving around the individual. What's that fancy word? Humanism. Everything comes back to that. So before this, our lives were focused around religion. Everything was about religion, all about, we're focused on when we die. Now we're focused on living life here. And then we're beginning to kind of question things. And this is important, this idea of questioning, because that's going to lead us into the Reformation and the scientific revolution and all those things, even enlightenment. They're all going to affect each other. Okay, so let's talk about the Reformation then. That's our next thing. Okay, so the Reformation. So again, the Reformation, what are we questioning? We're questioning the what? The church. And when we say the church, what church are we talking about? The Catholic Church. Catholic means universal. There was only one church at that time period. I mean, technically the Eastern Orthodox was there in Russia too, but for Europeans, it's really focusing on the Catholic Church. So we have some pre-reformers like Wycliffe and Houston. Honestly, I wouldn't worry about focusing on them too much. Great if you get a 600. We're not worried about that. We're shooting for 456, right? And so let's focus on our key things. So who are we going to see? We're going to see Martin Luther and we're going to see John Calvin, right? That's who we're going to see. So tell me a little bit about Martin Luther. Yeah, so he's the father of the Protestant Reformation. He writes the 95 Theses. His key thing is he says that the Pope is not the ultimate authority. Who's the ultimate authority? God, and the Bible is the ultimate authority, and that everyone is equal, and salvation is by what? Faith. That's the key things. Now Calvin adds to that by saying that God is already predetermined. What's that called? Predestination. Luther doesn't agree with that, but there are some people who still believe in that today. And so we're going to end up with the Protestant Reformation. Now, and remember, just think about that. What does Protestant mean? What's the root word of Protestant? Protest. Okay, they're protesting the abuses of the Catholic Church, like indulgences. What's an indulgence? Yes, they get out of purgatory. All right. So, how does the Catholic respond? Okay, what's all that at? The Council of Trent. And that's a good point about the Anglicans. Let me come back to that. So the Council of Trent, that's where we get the Jesuits, the Inquisition. They start questioning, kind of say, but they say maybe indulgences are not quite exactly right, but for the most part they reaffirm their faith. Now somebody just mentioned another kind of important reformer, and that's Henry VIII. And Henry VIII starts the what? And why does he start the Anglican Church? Because the Pope wouldn't give him a divorce. Isn't he a little bit of a crybaby? All right, so the Pope wouldn't give him a divorce, and so he starts his own church, the Anglican Church. And this is going to take land away from the Catholic Church, and he's going to give it to his nobles. So what do the English nobles think about this? Yay, because we're getting more land. And who does he put as the head of the church? Himself. Okay, he's got a pretty healthy ego, right? And so then his daughter, Elizabeth, is going to be after that. Hello? Hey. I'm doing SOL review right now. Okay, we'll talk about it tomorrow. All right, bye. Okay, so that's pretty much the Reformation, if you can kind of keep all that stuff straight. Oh, you know what? Let's put one other big thing on here. You guys remember what the Edict of Nantes is? Yes, so there was actually a Henry in France, but I don't want to confuse you with the Henrys. So basically the French, they decide to give freedom of worship for the Protestants. This is freedom of religion. Of course, when Louis becomes king, he immediately gets rid of this. But for a little bit of time, there's actually freedom of religion. So the Reformation is very important because during this time we see increases. So we see increases in secularism. What is secularism? What does secular mean? Non-religious. We see increases in religious freedom, and we see increases in individualism. All this, again, we're encouraging this questioning, which is going to then lead us into the scientific revolution and all of those things. Before we get into the scientific revolution, though, let's take a minute and let's talk about our empires. So let's think about empires and trade. All right, who are our empires that we probably need to remember? Okay, so we got Ottoman. Who else? The Safavid maybe, but they're probably not going to be on there. The Mughal, they're definitely going to be on there. We're going to need to remember China, Japan, and think about our Aztec Maya, the Aztec Maya Inca. Can you see this color okay? Yeah. My marker's a little squished in. All right, and then what about trade routes? We want to know the Silk Road, right? And then maritime trade routes. And those maritime trade routes, all this is going to lead to the exploration. What does maritime mean? By water. So this is talking about India. Okay, so the Ottomans, where do they start? They start in Turkey, and then soon will spread to how many continents? 3. They're going to be in the Middle East, Asia, they're going to be in North Africa, and they're going to be in Europe. What's their capital? Istanbul. Remember that the Ottomans and Mughals are both gunpowder empires, so they're Muslim. And what are they trading in Turkey? What are the 2 C's? Coffee and ceramics. So Arabic and Islam is going to be a unifying force for them. They do actually practice religious tolerance in the sense that you just had to pay a tax if you weren't Muslim. The Mughals, where are they located? India, and what they bring Islam with them. What are people in India already? Hindu. And the Mughals, what do they build? What's their famous building? When I say Taj Mahal, do you have a picture in your mind what that looks like? That big white building? If you saw it, could you recognize it in the picture? So that's a wonderful example of Islamic architecture. And if anybody said no, I'll pull up a picture and show you. So the Taj Mahal, and what are they trading? Textiles, spices, and jewels or gems. Do you guys know that word, gem? Okay. All right, China. We talked about the Silk Road. What's being traded on the Silk Road? Silk, paper, porcelain, tea, gunpowder. What's another trade thing they're going to get? The compass. That's helpful. And because of trade and maritime trade routes, we're going to get mathematics from the Arabs. We're going to get numbers, Arabic numerals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We can take from them. We're going to get the ship rudder. We're going to get a new improved ship. All those things are going to lead. We're also going to get some astronomy as well. China and Japan, well, how do they feel about foreigners? What are they going to start to do? Yeah, they're going to start to isolate themselves. Isolation. That's spelled right. And then China specifically is going to do the enclaves, yeah. Japan, before this, had samurais, right? And who was really running the country? They had an emperor, but the real was the shogun. Does all that sound vaguely familiar? Okay. You'll probably see some kind of map with the trade routes, I would imagine. All right, let's move on to what's next. So we're going from here, then kind of our next stop is all this questioning and everything. This is going to lead us to the scientific revolution. Scientific revolution. Prior to the scientific revolution, I can't spell today, guys. Thinking, how does thinking change now? We're going from superstition to what? Reason and logic. You're going to see a lot of kind of cause and effect questions, like how does that affect things that we're no longer kind of dependent upon the church? So this whole idea of questioning, we see it here in the Renaissance, we see it here in the Reformation, we see here that it's okay to question, okay? So who are some people that we need to know? Hey, I got Galileo, Copernicus, Kepler, Harvey, Newton. I'm going to tell you your best bet. I think you're probably going to see Harvey, maybe Kepler. Copernicus is a chance. Those are my best bets. So Galileo, he did the what? New improved telescope. He looked at the galaxy. Galileo looked at the galaxy with a telescope. Copernicus, he thought the sun was the center. These are all my little keywords to help me remember. I got a lot of stuff in my head too. I know you guys got too. So galaxy, Galileo, looked through a telescope. Copernicus, center. Earth is the sun is the center. Harvey, if you like, if you're a little dark and twisty. Okay, Harvey, or Harvey, heart, pumping blood, right? Circulatory system. Kepler, planetary motion, right? He proves that Copernicus is right. So does Galileo. Newton, what does Newton do? Everybody remembers Newton, right? The apple, gravity. Who else? Am I forgetting? I don't linguistic bacon. All right, so this all ties into exploration. Can you see that one okay? All right, exploration. So, exploration. Why? Why explore? Guide glory gold, right? So we want to find out where all this stuff is. We want to get money. We want to bring glory to our country. We want to spread Christianity. Yes, so why does Columbus set sail? Is Columbus trying to find a new place? No, he's trying to find a shorter way to get where? Where is he trying to get? India. And what's in India? Spices. And unintentionally he discovers the New World. And that starts this whole global age of exploration. All right, so who's a couple guys we got to remember? I think one of our best chances is Da Gama. What did Da Gama do? He ran the tip of Africa to India. Okay? I think you will have Cortez or Pizarro. Cortez, of course, is the Aztecs. Does it help you? And Pizarro is the Incas. Sometimes Drake shows up. He's one of my personal favorites. What did Drake do? Yeah, so he's an Englishman. He kind of has two things because he had fought in the I can't talk and spell at the same time. Here we go. He fought in the Spanish Armada, so he's the dragon, and so he might show up there. Who's the first to circumnavigate the world in general? Magellan. Although he doesn't make it home, right? It's just his crew. Okay. So with all this, we need to know that Columbus starts the Columbian Exchange. And so we've got the New World, which is the Americas, and what's the Old World? Europe. And so what's coming from them to us? This is probably a good TEI. What are they giving us? They're giving us disease. What animals though are good? Horses, cattle, and then the bad stuff. Disease, what are we sending them? Corn, tobacco, and potatoes. And potatoes are really going to change the diet of Europeans. And horses and cattle. Horses are going to hugely change Native American lifestyles. All right, then that brings us to triangular trade. Again, would make an excellent TEI question. So what are my 3 points? So I've got Europe, goes to Africa, and what's traded there? Manufactured goods.
Like rum and guns.
Like rum, guns, labor of like actual finished products. What's Africa to where? Americas, and what's being traded? Slaves across the Middle Passage, and then what's going from America to Europe? Raw materials, like that cotton, that sugar, that lumber. So exploration changes everything. In exploration, these desire for these things are going to lead to all this other stuff that's going to happen that we're going to see. The world is changing. All right. After exploration, then we get this huge SOL with the age of absolutism, or the age of enlightenment, or the global age. I think I'll go with global age. That way we can talk about them kind of all together. All right, so at the same time they were questioning science, so we were doing more questioning here, right? Now we're going to apply questioning to government. So let's apply the scientific revolution to how man works, to how government works, and that's going to give us the Enlightenment. So we're using reason now to apply to how man acts. So we need to remember Hobbes. Hobbes is the hater, and Locke, he's the lover. Okay? So Locke thinks that democracy is good. He likes, what kind of rights, guys? Natural rights. He wants to protect our rights. Hobbes, what kind of government does he think we need? Because we're so bad, we can't keep ourselves straight. We got to have somebody to keep us straight. Okay? So we also should know Montesquieu, separation of powers, the 3 branches of government. That's easy to remember. Montesquieu, which I ain't promise I spell it all right, but Montesquieu is 3 syllables, 3 branches of government. So we would see that where in our country? U.S. Constitution, right? That's what they're going to do. They're going to put a passage from the Constitution and then say, what a Enlightenment philosopher influenced this. Or they might do like the Declaration of Independence with John Locke. Maybe Voltaire. Voltaire gives us a voice. Voltaire, he believed in freedom of speech and religion. And slight chance, Rousseau, which is the social contract. That we make the contract with government, like Locke talks about, and that the government is supposed to protect our rights. So all of this is kind of challenging these ideas of absolute monarchs. So an absolute monarch has what two things? Divine right, which means he got his right to a rule from God, and then he also has total power. And your best examples of that would be Louis XIV, the Sun King, and he ruled what? France. He built the Palace of Versailles. Peter the Great would be another great example. Peter the Great's in Russia, and he westernized Russia. All right, so next on our events in global age, then we're going to get the English Civil War, which kind of challenges absolute monarchy. Okay, so Charles abuses his power, and the people are tired of absolute monarchs. They want somebody else. So then that leads to the English Civil War. Long story short, basically Cromwell, they win, the people win. Then we get another absolute monarch after the Restoration, and that finally the people are like, we're done. And that leads to, ding, 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 the Glorious Revolution. If you don't remember anything else I talked about on this side of the board, this is it. Promise you, you will see a cause and effect question about the Glorious Revolution. Why is the Glorious Revolution important? The Glorious Revolution is important because it ends what? What's I've been talking about? What does it end? It ends absolute monarchs. It ends absolutism, and now the people are supreme in England. Who represents the people in England? Parliament. Okay, super, super significant. Now, all this has been happening in England, and so about that time the American Revolution will happen. What inspires us to break away? What's our inspiration? Locke, right? These Enlightenment thinkers. Then that's going to lead to, what's our next big thing we're going to see? The French Revolution. And the French Revolution is inspired by what? Us, the American Revolution and the Enlightenment. So again, what do we see? We see abuses of power. This time it's abuses of power by who? Louis the 16th. People are tired of this. There's inequality. So what starts the French Revolution? Storming of the Bastille. You guys remember that? What happens after the storming of the Bastille? Then it gets ugly. They start cutting off everybody's heads. The Reign of Terror. Who finally brings order? Napoleon. Short dead dude. Tries to take over the world. Don't take Russia in the winter. Doesn't work out. So Napoleon's going to end this all. Napoleon does lots of good things. Napoleon does a code of law. He brings education. He also builds more churches. Does a couple of different good things. But eventually he tries to take over too much of Europe, which the response to that is going to be, do you guys remember studying the Congress of Vienna? Mm-hmm. Every teacher spent, like 15 minutes at the most talking about it. And it's one of those we easily forget. The Congress of Vienna, all of this scared the crap out of them, basically. And they want to go back to absolute monarchs being in charge. They don't like the people having a say. They're not a fan. And that's what they want to go back to. Okay? Restore that balance of power. So, in the case of American Revolution, where we establish nice democracy, who's more right, Locke or Hobbes? Locke. In the case of the French Revolution, where people were cutting off everybody's heads, thousands of people were dying, and finally Napoleon restores order, who's more right, Hobbes or Locke? Hobbes, because could the people in France be trusted? No. Apparently not. Could the people in America be trusted? Yeah, we did okay. All right, any questions on that? Seriously, this is the longest SOL. It's ridiculous. Just a hint, this is also part of this SOL. That's how long that is. Long, long SOL. But the good news is now we're getting into the modern world. Okay, and that's what you should be a little bit more familiar with. Yeah. So let's move from the global age. Let's actually add with this one little thing that's also kind of a bit of a response, and that would be nationalism. So let's mention nationalism. What is nationalism, guys? What is it? That's patriotism mostly. It is part of that, but it's the belief that people of what?
Common language and language should be together.
People of a common language and culture should be together. So I'm going to write down some guys we need to know for nationalism, and let's see if we know who they are and what they did. So let me do my America guys. I got Bolivar, I got Hidalgo, and I got Toussaint Louverture. They're revolutionaries. Where is Bolivar?
South America.
South America is the liberator. He's in South America. Where's Hidalgo?
Haiti.
Mexico. Where's Toussaint Louverture? Haiti. Toussaint Louverture, Miss Lee's taught me this a long time ago. He's the name that we love to hate. Okay, Toussaint Louverture. Now, there's some other guys that come a little bit later. Count Cavour, Giuseppe Garibaldi, and Bismarck. What do they do? Where do they go?
Bismarck is Germany and realpolitik.
Okay? Germany and realpolitik. It was Prussia becomes Germany. What about Cavour and Garibaldi? Italy. Which one's in the north? Cavour, and the south, Garibaldi. Think about it alphabetically. North becomes, of course, south in the alphabet. Cavour's in the north. Garibaldi's in the south. So north, south. And Garibaldi, they usually put a picture of him with his red shirt, and they did guerrilla warfare. Okay? All right, let's do imperialism and industrial revolution. So also keep in mind that Latin America, they're being exploited by, think about exploration, that the Spanish are bringing their colonies. That's why most people in South America are Catholic and speak Spanish. And that there's a lot of silver. They're making a ton of money off of the trade. That's what mercantilism is, right? You remember that concept, mercantilism? That colonies exist to make money for their parent country. That's exploration is all about that. All right, so let's do Industrial Revolution. Where does the Industrial Revolution begin? Begins in Great Britain because they have lots of resources. It begins in the textiles. So think about some guys we might want to know. Bessemer, which he did what? Steel. You might want to know James Watts, who did the steam engine. There's 6 guys you got to know. I don't know which, they're only going to put one. I don't know which one it's going to be. Take a guess. Look over them, you know. I think Bessemer is a good one, but it could just as easily be James Hargreaves, which to me is one of the harder ones to remember. That's a spinning jenny. John McAdam did the long distance roads. You know, the nice, easy one is Louis Pasteur, who did pasteurization of milk. They don't like to make it that easy. Then there's Edward Jenner, who did the smallpox vaccination. I mean, there's several to choose from there. Henry Ford probably won't be on there. He'd be on a U.S. history test. Remember the big thing? Here's what they're going to ask you about Industrial Revolutions. They're going to ask you about factories. Life in the factories, they sucked if you were an average person. You worked long, you worked hard, difficult hours. It was very bad. So it gets better because of what? Unions and strikes and collective bargaining. Okay? So Industrial Revolution leads to imperialism because we need resources for these factories. And so imperialism, remember, is when one country takes over another. They're probably going to show you some kind of political cartoon, like a sphere of influence, where they're cutting up the pieces of China, or they might show you the Boxer Rebellion, or so any of those things are fair game. The Boxer Rebellion, the Sepoy Rebellion, like where people tried to fight against them, it didn't work. Know that Europe, you know, controlled most of Africa and great bits of Asia. Japan is going to be the exception. Japan's going to say, hey, maybe we shouldn't still be isolated. When the American Great White Fleet shows up and they're like, that little toy locomotive is pretty cool. I want to know about that. And so Japan is going to get in on the game. And that's going to lead us to World War II. Before we get to World War II, though, we got to go to World War I. So, World War I. Tell me a little bit about World War I. Okay, what are the causes?
Alliance.
Militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism. And what's the catalyst that starts the war? Assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Archduke. I can't spell. Franz Ferdinand. Okay, how do they fight during this war? They use trench warfare, and which is dumb and stupid and suicidal. Oh my goodness. But both sides were so evenly matched. That's why they do it. They have new weapons. They have flamethrowers and submarines and tanks and gas and lots of horrible things that don't work so well. Two people you want to know. Woodrow Wilson. He is the leader of USA. And the other guy we need to know is the leader of Germany. Anybody remember that? Kaiser Wilhelm II. Wilhelm is a fancy way, or the German way of saying William. So World War I is a cause of World War II. They set up the League of Nations, which is a failure. And the League of Nations are in charge of the mandates. Remember the mandate system? Now I know Miss Nash does this. I don't know if you guys did this in Miss McRoy, but we did it in my class too. We learned the acronym PB&J. So Palestine and Jordan are controlled by Britain. And Fat Lady sings, France controls Lebanon and Syria. I'm all about mnemonic devices to help me remember because I'm old. Even when I was young though, when I was your age, I used to come up with all kinds of little things to help me remember. So stuff like this really works for me. And like the stuff we just did with like Voltaire do the Savoys, things like that. It's little things you can do. But PB&J stands for Palestine, Britain, and Jordan. And Fat Lady sings is France, Lebanon, and Syria. Alright, so then World War II. Alright, World War II. What are the two causes of World War II? Caused by appeasement of the Allies and the aggression of the Axis powers. The aggression of the Axis powers. All right, so who are the Axis powers? Little acronym to remember: JIG, Japan, Italy, Germany. The Allies are Great Britain, France, U.S., and Soviet Union. The big three are the U.S., USSR, and Great Britain. Who's ruling Great Britain? Winston Churchill, FDR at the beginning of the war, and then Truman for the U.S. and the Soviet Union is Stalin. I always say for the leaders, LSG, Lenin is the leader, Stalin makes us sad, Gorbachev is good. So, because remember during World War I, this is when the Russian Revolution happens, and Lenin is leading the Bolsheviks, and then Stalin is going to be in charge after him. So, Japan is led by Tojo, Italy is led by Mussolini, we all know Germany, Hitler, okay? These are both fascists. Italy attacks Ethiopia, Germany takes everywhere. They take Czechoslovakia, they take the Sudetenland, they take Austria, and then eventually what officially starts it when they attack Poland. Japan will take Manchuria, China, and then they're just going to take all these different islands, the Philippines and down into the Indonesia. So it starts with the invasion of Poland, and then our key turning points would be Midway, the victory in the Pacific, Stalingrad, which is the victory in Russia, and then D-Day, which is the storming of the beaches of Normandy. What ends the war, and I'm flying through the war here because it's one of the last things we talked about, so we should be remotely familiar. The use of the atomic bomb dropped on Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, by President Truman. And why did America use the atomic bomb? To save American lives. Now, the kind of like after or the effects, like we're going to see the UN is formed, we're going to see the Marshall Plan that tries to rebuild Europe, we're going to see the Cold War. And so the Cold War is a direct effect of this, and it is the USA versus the USSR. They're leading Warsaw, and USA is leading NATO. Remember that Winston Churchill says that an iron curtain has been drawn across Europe, and so this is definitely an effect. So some of the events of the Cold War that we maybe want to know, the Cuban Missile Crisis. Tell me some more, guys. Korean War, what's the other war we need to know? Vietnam.
The Berlin Wall.
Berlin Wall, the Berlin Blockade. And so what eventually ends the Cold War is the fall of the Berlin Wall. Okay, while I'm here, let me mention the genocides, since we discuss Hitler. Hitler, remember, is blaming the Jews for everything. So we have the Holocaust, which happens in Europe under the Nazis. We have, in the Ottoman Empire, we're going to see the Armenian genocide. What are my other genocides? Rwandan, Cambodian, Yugoslavia. Okay. Systematically trying to wipe out people. Stalin tried to wipe out people too. He killed 20 to 40 million Soviets. Okay, guys, we're almost done. Now we're ready for the modern world. What color's next? Black? All right, modern world. There's a crap ton of people to know. That's part of the problem. The modern world, let's just real quickly, before we get into the people, let's kind of hit, we've got developed versus developing countries. You're going to see at least one question on that. Think about this. We're developed. Most of Africa is developing. So imagine in your mind, is this true? If it says this is a developed country, is this true of the U.S.? Most of it has to do with the economy. We have better economy, better literacy rate, more doctors, all those things. Most of Europe is also developed. Terrorism. What's the cause of most terrorism today? Radical religious extremism, yes. So there might be some trade organizations they ask you about, the European Union or the North American Free Trade Agreement, or they might ask about the International Monetary Fund. So look over that last little page in your packets. That would be a good little review for you. But both of these are trade unions, and IMF does loans. They might just ask about how the world's connected because of technology and communication and all of those things. All right, let's talk about people. So you're for sure going to see Gandhi. So Gandhi, of course, frees India. You're going to see one of the women. I don't know which woman. It will either be Margaret Thatcher or Golda Meir or Indira Gandhi. It will be one of those three women. So Thatcher is the UK, Golda Meir is Israel, and Indira Gandhi is the Soviet Union. Is India. She was friends with the Soviet Union. Thatcher and Meir are friends with the U.S. You're definitely going to see Nelson Mandela. What did he end in South Africa? Yeah, he ended apartheid. You may see Nasser, who was Egypt. Ooh, we got to do our Chinese guys. Okay. Mao. Mao is the communist. He established communist China. And then after him was Deng Xiaoping. Deng Xiaoping is like Gorbachev. He is ruling China, but he allows capitalism. Now, I didn't mention capitalism and communism. Are you okay on Karl Marx and Adam Smith? Like, those are things that could possibly come up. I mean, obviously, I can't do every single thing. If you knew 80% of the stuff on this board, you'll be fine. Okay? If you don't know anything else, if you knew World War I to the present, that's 50% of the test. Okay? About 50% of the test. So if you knew, like, this half pretty well, you're going to be okay tomorrow as well.